The first thing everyone saw was the porcelain vase exploding across the polished marble floor. The second was a young maid collapsing to her knees, trembling as the billionaire's priceless family heirloom shattered into countless pieces around her. Every servant in the mansion froze, convinced her life had just been ruined. Rumors spread within seconds that no employee had ever broken something so valuable and kept their job. Yet no one noticed the older billionaire standing silently at the top of the staircase, staring not at the broken vase, but at the frightened young woman whose tears reminded him of someone he had loved and lost many years before. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so you can continue this emotional journey with our community. Clara Whitmore had never imagined that one mistake could feel heavier than a lifetime of hardship. She had spent years surviving disappointment without allowing it to harden her heart. After losing both parents in a tragic accident, she worked every ordinary job she could find until an opportunity appeared to become a live-in housemaid at one of the largest estates in the country. The estate belonged to Alastair Hawthorne, a billionaire businessman known throughout the financial world for his unmatched discipline, remarkable success, and cold distance from almost everyone around him. Newspapers admired his business empire while those who worked for him whispered that his mansion was quieter than a museum because no one dared to laugh too loudly within its walls. Clara accepted the position because it offered stability rather than comfort. She understood that cleaning luxurious rooms did not make her less valuable as a person. She treated every hallway, every piece of furniture, and every forgotten photograph with respect because she believed that caring for someone else's home reflected her own character. Although several employees viewed her as overly cheerful for someone carrying so much pain, she never complained. She greeted everyone with warmth, quietly helped coworkers finish difficult tasks, and often skipped her own breaks to assist elderly staff members who struggled to keep up with the demanding schedule. Alastair noticed none of these things during the first few weeks. His days followed an unchanging rhythm of business meetings, investment reports, legal documents, and endless phone calls. Wealth had surrounded him for decades, yet happiness had become increasingly unfamiliar. After losing his wife Eleanor to a long illness many years earlier, he buried himself in work so completely that success became the only emotion he still recognized. His only daughter had moved overseas after growing tired of his emotional absence, leaving the enormous mansion filled with expensive silence. The shattered vase changed everything. Instead of immediately dismissing Clara as everyone expected, Alastair slowly descended the staircase and asked the estate manager to leave them alone. Clara expected anger. She expected humiliation. Instead, Alastair quietly knelt beside one of the broken porcelain pieces and gently picked it up. The tiny painted flowers decorating the fragment had been carefully restored once before. He remembered repairing the vase with Eleanor after accidentally dropping it during their first year of marriage. It had never been perfect afterward, but somehow they had loved it even more because its cracks reminded them that broken things could still remain beautiful. Looking at Clara's terrified expression, he realized she carried the same fear Eleanor once described after losing her own childhood home in a fire. It was not fear of punishment. It was fear of becoming disposable. Rather than firing Clara, Alastair simply told the estate manager that accidents happen and instructed everyone to continue working. The room filled with stunned silence. Clara could barely understand what had happened. Gratitude replaced panic, but confusion remained. She spent the rest of the day apologizing repeatedly even though no one asked her to. From that afternoon onward, something almost invisible began changing inside the mansion. Alastair found himself observing Clara from a distance. He noticed how she carefully straightened crooked picture frames without being asked. He noticed her quietly leaving fresh flowers beside the portrait of his late wife every Friday, never expecting anyone to notice. He noticed that elderly employees smiled more often whenever Clara worked nearby because she somehow made exhausting days feel lighter. The billionaire who once believed people only worked for money slowly discovered that genuine kindness still existed without expecting rewards. One afternoon, Clara found an old greenhouse hidden behind the western gardens. Years earlier Eleanor had filled it with colorful flowers before illness forced her to stop caring for them. The glass building had since become abandoned, its broken benches covered with dust and neglected vines. During her free hours Clara carefully cleaned every corner, repaired damaged flower pots using simple materials, and planted inexpensive seeds purchased from her own modest savings. She never mentioned the project to anyone because she believed beautiful things should exist whether they were admired or not. Several weeks later Alastair accidentally wandered into the greenhouse after a difficult business meeting. Sunlight poured through the restored glass, illuminating hundreds of tiny blossoms beginning to bloom. For the first time in years he smelled the same gentle fragrance that once welcomed him home when Eleanor was alive. The sight overwhelmed him. He sat quietly on a weathered bench while memories he had buried beneath endless work returned with astonishing clarity. Instead of feeling pain, he felt gratitude. When he discovered Clara had restored the greenhouse without seeking recognition, he asked the estate manager why she had spent her own money on flowers that belonged to someone else. The answer stayed with him for days. Clara simply believed every abandoned place deserved another chance because people often did too. Meanwhile, resentment quietly grew elsewhere inside the estate. Gregory Stanton, Alastair's ambitious chief financial advisor, disliked Clara's growing influence. He had spent years encouraging Alastair to become even more isolated because loneliness made controlling business decisions easier. Gregory viewed compassion as weakness and feared that anyone capable of reaching Alastair emotionally threatened his own position. He began spreading subtle rumors among employees, suggesting Clara was manipulating the billionaire for financial gain. Although most staff refused to believe the accusations, whispers eventually reached Alastair. Instead of confronting Clara immediately, he chose to observe carefully. One bright afternoon Gregory arranged for confidential financial papers to disappear from Alastair's private office. He secretly placed them inside a cleaning cart scheduled for Clara's shift, expecting everyone to believe she intended to steal valuable documents. When the papers were discovered, suspicion instantly surrounded Clara. Some employees avoided eye contact while others quietly questioned everything they thought they knew about her. Clara herself looked completely devastated. She could not explain how the documents appeared there because she genuinely had no idea. For the first time since arriving at the estate, she considered leaving voluntarily. Alastair faced a difficult choice. Years of business experience taught him never to ignore suspicious circumstances. Yet his heart refused to believe the woman who restored forgotten gardens and comforted exhausted workers would betray his trust. Instead of making an immediate judgment, he ordered a complete internal investigation. Several tense days passed. Clara continued working despite painful whispers following her through every hallway. She understood that defending herself without evidence would accomplish nothing. All she could do was continue living honestly. Eventually the truth emerged through an overlooked security recording that revealed Gregory secretly planting the missing documents before pretending to discover them later. His elaborate scheme collapsed within minutes. Alastair felt something stronger than anger. He realized he had nearly allowed fear to destroy the most sincere person who had entered his life in years. Gregory was immediately dismissed from every position within the company. More importantly, Alastair gathered every employee together in the mansion's grand entrance hall beneath the warm afternoon sunlight streaming through enormous windows. In front of everyone, he apologized directly to Clara for allowing doubt to overshadow trust. Many employees watched with tears because they had never seen the billionaire admit a mistake so openly. Clara accepted the apology with quiet grace. She explained that forgiveness did not erase painful moments, but it prevented them from poisoning the future. Her words reached everyone present far more deeply than she realized. Months passed, and the atmosphere throughout the estate transformed. Employees no longer worked in fearful silence. The restored greenhouse became a peaceful gathering place during lunch breaks. Alastair introduced fairer working conditions, better wages, educational opportunities for employees' children, and healthcare benefits inspired by conversations with Clara about the struggles ordinary families faced every day. His daughter, Vivian, eventually visited after hearing surprising stories about her father's remarkable change. Expecting the same emotionally distant man she had left behind, she instead found him laughing gently while helping elderly gardeners water flowers inside Eleanor's restored greenhouse. Father and daughter spent the afternoon talking honestly for the first time in many years. They spoke about grief, regret, missed birthdays, unanswered letters, and the loneliness both had silently carried. Neither could recover the lost years, but they discovered they could still create better ones together. Watching them reconcile filled Clara with quiet happiness. She never sought recognition for inspiring change because she believed love multiplied most beautifully when no one claimed ownership of it. Inspired by everything he had learned, Alastair established a charitable foundation dedicated to helping domestic workers, single parents, and struggling families receive education, housing assistance, and career opportunities. Rather than placing his own name prominently on every building, he requested simple plaques carrying a message Eleanor once cherished: broken beginnings can still become beautiful endings. Clara was invited to help oversee many community programs. She hesitated at first, believing someone more educated should lead such important work. Alastair reminded her that compassion could never be replaced by degrees or titles. The foundation needed someone who truly understood hardship without allowing hardship to destroy kindness. Years later, visitors admired the magnificent estate not because of its luxury but because of its welcoming spirit. Employees remained there for decades because they felt respected. Children laughed freely across gardens once filled with silence. The restored greenhouse became a symbol of hope for everyone who visited, proving neglected places and wounded hearts could bloom again under patient care. Clara eventually looked back at the shattered vase that once seemed like the worst day of her life. Its carefully repaired pieces rested inside a glass display near the greenhouse entrance. Instead of hiding its cracks, the repairs were intentionally visible, reminding everyone who passed that perfection was never the goal. Healing was. Before this story comes to its close, leave a meaningful comment telling us what touched your heart most. Do you believe one act of kindness can completely change another person's life, or has someone ever given you a second chance when you needed it most? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May Clara's quiet strength remind us that true wealth is never measured by the size of a fortune but by the compassion we choose to show others. Sometimes the person the world overlooks becomes the very one who teaches broken hearts how to heal, lonely families how to reunite, and successful people how to become truly rich. And in the brightest light of an ordinary day, where every wound was finally met with honesty instead of fear, forgiveness instead of pride, and hope instead of despair, everyone discovered that the greatest miracle was never the billionaire's fortune. It was the courage of one humble maid who refused to let hardship steal her kindness, proving that a gentle heart can transform an entire world.